Hello, everybody, and welcome to Free Tree Society's Live Talk series with me, Rina, and of course, our favorite doctor and expert, Dr. Chan Z Yang, for our Wild, Weird, and Wonderful series. I think we're at series 4 now, where we will be exploring the wonderful diversity of species in the Cameron Highlands. Now, if you don't know already, we usually don't do just one of these talks. So this talk is actually a first of a two-parter. Today we will be examining the plants
Plant.
of
Yeah.
Cameron Highlands. And then tomorrow, if you like animals and creepy crawlies, this is going to be really great. We'll be exploring the wonderful animal species that reside in the beautiful land
Misty
of
Mountain.
Cameron
Yeah.
Highlands. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I think the last time we saw you was when, Dr. Chan? Last year.
Last year, I always do it in the Christmas, but nowadays we have a
Correct.
special one because I have something very special to show you. So I've
Okay.
moved forward and then in conjunction with our World Environment Day, right? Yeah.
That's right.
So
So happy
good
World
enough.
Environment Day.
Yeah.
And I hope that like this talk, like all of our other wild, weird, and wonderful talks, opens your eyes to our beautiful biodiversity here in Malaysia and why it is so important to protect all our green spaces in order to let these species thrive. So without further ado, Dr. Chan, over to you. Let's get into this talk.
All right. Okay. So hello, people, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to our Wild, Weird, and Wonderful series. And today, like I've said, I have something very special to show you. And it's all about this remarkable place called the Cameron Highlands. Now, the Cameron Highlands is situated in the state of Pahang, some 1,500 meters above the sea level. And that makes it one of the highest townships in around Peninsular Malaysia. And here, unlike the lowlands, we have a subtropical climate around 14 to 27 degrees Celsius. And that is why the Cameron Highlands is a hotspot for agriculture and tourism in Malaysia. Okay, and it's all thanks to this British explorer, William Cameron, who discovered, in his words, a fine plateau with gentle slopes shut in by lofty mountains in 1885. So to many of us, the Cameron Highlands is either tea or strawberry or nowadays traffic congestion, right? But mind you, it is also a most beautiful place with a unique habitat called the montane ecosystem, sometimes called the cloud forest, where it is constantly cool, moist, humid, and where we have a lot of moss, ferns, and conifers. So this is really home to some of the wildest, weirdest, and most wonderful organisms out there. So we'll see. Now, let's begin with the most iconic highland plants, the angel's trumpets. Now, if you have ever been to these highland resorts like Genting or Cameron or Jerai, you will see this plant. And when you see these flowers, right, you know you are up there in the highlands, right? Okay, the reason why it's called the angel's trumpet is because of these large pendulous flowers that always hangs upside down. It's like a angel who blows his or her trumpets down from the heavens. It's very beautiful. And this is a hardwood shrub that can bear hundreds of flowers when it's flowering, which are very fragrant at night. So at night, if you have a flowering tree, so the scent can waft through the street, and it's really a sight and smell to behold. It's an iconic plant of the highlands, but also it is deadly poisonous, which is why it is the star of our show. Okay, so there are many species and cultivars of angel's trumpets if you've been observant. So it depends on whether or not the flower exceeds the calyx here, or it depends on the length and the shape of the petal tips. So if we have a pink or white trumpet with very short petal tips, you can see here from my cursor, that is the valid species called Suaviolens. And this one, it smells sort of lemony and it has a distinct flowering season compared to the rest. So when you see the pink in flower, maybe you won't see the orange. Okay, they are distinct species. And here on the bottom left, we have another species which is very large, and you can see the petal tip. It looks like a tendril, right? It is almost as long as the flower itself. And this is another species called the golden angel's trumpet, Bergsmansia aurea. And from this recurved, this strongly recurved petal tips. You see the trait, right? From this species, we have two predominant cultivars. One is a natural cultivar called Candida, the lime white angel's trumpet. We'll see this one live soon enough. And also the more common one on the right here, the orange angel's trumpet, which is a human-made cultivar combining three different species all together. It's called cubensis, right? You'll see all this in the Highlands. The most common one is the one on the top right, the orange one. Now, the angel's trumpet is named after a Dutch botanist, Siebold Bergsman, in 1805. And it comprises about 7 species, all coming from South America. So mind you, this is not a native plant. Rather, it is cultivated by the British colonials, brought into the Highlands, and then it has escaped cultivation and integrated itself into our local ecosystem. It doesn't appear to cause harm, so it is not invasive either. So we call this naturalized species. So truly, the angel's trumpet is a symbolic heritage tree, is a historical symbol of the highlands in Malaysia. And what's even more exciting or interesting is that all 7 species are currently extinct in the wild. So even in South America, you won't be able to find angel's trumpets growing in the jungle anymore. And the reason is because its distribution vector, or the animal that spreads the seeds of the Bergsmansia, we don't know what that is, has gone extinct. Yeah, so Bergsmansia is currently extinct in the wild. So this brings a very important and crucial message to us. You see, if we humans intervene and cultivate certain species ex situ, it doesn't have to be in the native range. So if we cultivate them ex situ, and then we can indirectly or directly ensure the survival of the plant to prevent it from going extinct. Okay, so this is what we call ex situ conservation. Now for Bergsmansia, it is most definitely non-deliberate, but we can, apply this concept to many of the threatened species, as we'll see coming next. All right. So the Bergsmansia belongs to the nightshade family of plants called Solanaceae. They almost always have pendulous flowers, and these incorporate some of the most important agricultural crops growing in around Cameron Highlands. We have tomatoes, eggplants, chilies, roofberries, and potato, all belonging to the nightshade family. But we also have lesser known crops of the nightshades, like this one here in the middle. What do you think it is? Have you seen this one before, Rina?
No, actually, I've never seen that.
No. Okay. So this one is a lesser grown edible crop belonging to the nightshade family. It's sometimes called the buah susu, the milk fruit, according to the Malays. But according to the Chinese, it's called the lover's fruit. You know why? Because it supposedly, and it indeed, tastes sweet, sour, bitter, and savory at the same time. Okay, that's why they call it just like love. And this is called a tree tomato plant, or Tamarillo solanum betaceum. It's related to potato and tomatoes, and it really is a tree, like a Bergsmansia, and it grows this kind of fruit. Now, how about the one on the bottom right? Have you seen this one before? This one is quite expensive, yeah? So one fruit of size like that can cost up to 5 ringgit, depending on season.
Wow.
Okay,
That
so
just
this
looks
one,
like a really funky eggplant to me.
yeah. They call it the Cameron's apples, but it has nothing to do with apple. It's not an apple, and its common name is called the pepino melon. It's not a melon either. It is a nightshade. And unfortunately, this one, it actually tastes nothing much to me. It's quite underwhelming, but if you've never tried it, then I suggest you to do so. Okay, so while we are on this lesser grown crops, here's another one that you can find in Cameron Highlands. What do you think this is? They call it the cordyceps, but true cordyceps is a fungus, right, affecting the caterpillars. Now, this one looks like a cordyceps, but it's actually a part of a plant. You can see it has greenish, right? So it has green pigments. It can photosynthesize. So this is a rhizome, okay? It's an underground stem of a plant. So what kind of plant do you think this is? It's been sold in Cameron Highlands, quite expensive as well. So any guess? It's not a nightshade. It's just a fun part. Well, guess what? This is Stachys affinis. It belongs to the Lamiaceae. It is a mint, if of all things. Yeah. a kind of mint. It doesn't smell like mint, but it belongs to the mint family, where you have this squarish stem, dainty purple flowers, and serrated mint-like leaves. Yeah. So this one, they call it the cordyceps, the stachys rhizome. Usually it's cooked into soup, it soaks up the flavor, it's sort of like a flavor enhancer. But then I also know at least one lady who air fried these and told me it tastes good. So maybe you should try that. So next time you go to Cameroon, try this one out. All right, now we have seen the edible ones. These are all the poisonous nightshade species. Any of the trumpets, tobacco, yesterday, today, tomorrow, and any of these nice smelling jasmines, right? They are all poisonous one way or another. You should not eat them. In fact, the whole nightshade family can be considered as poisonous. Even potato, you do not eat the shoots of the potatoes, right? Yeah, so nightshades are poisonous. And the active toxin of the angel's trumpet is called atropine, or in a broader terms, tropane alkaloids. And atropine is so named after this Greek goddess of fate who cuts the thread of life. So that alludes to how toxic it is. And this is an alkaloid. Now, if you've watched my lectures, I've said this a million times. An alkaloid is an alkaline plant toxin containing nitrogen. Okay, so the nitrogen makes it alkaline, and that it comes from the air. Air is 70% nitrogen, and bacteria or lightning converts the nitrogen into ammonia, which the plants take up as fertilizer. And then from that, it makes amino acids. In humans, we use amino acids to make proteins. But for plants, it can be converted into these alkaloids, also called secondary metabolites. In this case, that amino acid is called L-ornithine. Okay, it doesn't matter. Just look at the blue highlighted fragment. I've labeled it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, starting from the nitrogen N. So you can think of this number 1 and number 5 is like a snake that bites its own tail to form a ring. And that gives the core structure of the alkaloid atropine, and which has profound implications on the human body. We'll see why. So molecules, they are not flat on surface like this. This is just how we scientists depict them. So in the real world, molecules are three-dimensional, wishy-washy, and it can twist and turn around like this. And this molecule of atropine, it actually looks a lot like what our bodies produce naturally. So we produce hormones and neurotransmitter to regulate our body function. And one of it is called acetylcholine. Okay, so this natural molecule your body makes looks a lot like atropine. You can see the yellow highlighted fragments here. Okay, you see the distance between the red and the blue, and if you count the atoms, mostly the same. But atropine also contains another fragment here that is different. So it is like this stick that that gets stuck in the lock of your body, and then it competes with the natural acetylcholine to prevent it from doing its job. So we call that an antagonist, and it competes with it. So atropine blocks our body's original neurotransmitter, and it does whatever opposite acetylcholine does. Okay, so it's very easy to remember the effects of atropine poisoning. Here it is. Blind as a bat. So it causes your pupils to dilate, and then you lose focus on near objects. Essentially, you become blind. Dry as a bone, it stops your body from secreting sweat, saliva, and urine. So dry up, and then because of that, you become hot as a hair. Okay, you cannot dissipate heat. You cannot urinate even though it's full, so full as a flask. So to compensate for all this heat, and you can indeed heat up dangerously, to compensate for that, your body dilates the blood vessels on the skin, red as a beet. And perhaps the most dangerous effect is because our brain relies on acetylcholine to function or to process memory and cognition. So under atropine's effect, you go mad as a hatter, okay? Reality and time goes out of the window. And if the dosage is high enough, most definitely, and indeed in rare cases, even 10 milligrams or a fraction of a gram can kill a human, okay? So this is how mad it can be, okay? So let's look at this case. So there's this 18-year-old chap who drank a cup of tea, you see, made by boiling just 2 flowers. And 20 minutes later, he came out and took a big pruning shear okay, and cut off his own lifeline and also his tongue, and which reimplantation was impossible. This is how dangerous it is, people. So there are these, kids, I think nowadays, who wants to go high and they think of trying the angel's trumpet. Please don't do this. Otherwise, this is the sort of thing that will happen. But history is always weird and dangerous. Have you ever wondered why Harry Potter and witches are always depicted flying on a broom? Okay, that's because they deliberately extracted atropine out of these trumpets or these atropine nightshades, and then they made it into an ointment. But instead of applying on their skin, they applied it on the broom and then stripped themselves naked and rode on the broom so that the alkaloids get absorbed from the thin skins of their sex organs. Dangerous contents. Now, even more dangerous here. Yeah, it's not just because it can be absorbed through your skin, right? Remember, blind as a bat. And this one actually happened to me. This is me. So if you're a trumpet fanatic like me, you plant all these trumpets, do beware. Even if you touch the sap of the plant, if you break the leaves of the flower or the seeds, you have the sap, and then you touch your eye, it is going to immediately absorb, okay? And then dilate your pupil. Can you see my left eye?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is what will happen, okay? And the reason why is because acetylcholine constricts your pupil. It regulates the muscles that constricts your pupil. So atropine blocks that. Your pupil loses the ability to constrict. It dilates. And worse still, this is the most interesting part, it paralyzes the muscles that your eyes use to accommodate or focus on near objects. So like now, if I'm having this, I cannot see anything in front of me. But then my far vision improves, so I don't need to wear my specs anymore. So this is called mydriasis and psychoplegia. It is in the common terms, the gardener's eye. So beware of that. In fact, it may look fun, but I assure you it's not, because when your pupils dilate to the size of dimes, right, a lot of light can come through and it hurts a lot. That causes photophobia. All right. So in fact, if you're unaware of this situation, and you present to the doctors, you will scare the bejesus out of them, because they may think that you have a stroke in the brain, and then they can order MRI, CT scan, all these scary, expensive procedures to show that, oh yeah, you have atropine in your eye. And there's really no antidote or nothing we can do about it. You just have to tap it out, wear sunglasses, and I think in a week or so, it will dissipate. Yeah.
So you said
Okay.
it absorbs through the skin. So you said it was already on your hands and then
Yeah, and if
your
you
eye.
touch your
But does it
eye,
not absorb through your hands as well?
it may, if it's a lot and concentrated, it may, but because the skin of your hand is so thick, the concentration that actually gets into you is very little. But your eye is different, right? Your eye is direct. And then your eye circulation is a bit different from the skin, okay? So if you have, or you have kids or pets, and if you're afraid of this one, then maybe the trumpets are not for you, okay? This is a very poisonous plant. So again, history is weird. Early Italian ladies, if you look at the paintings, they always have these large dilated pupils, right? Indeed, it is true, because they deliberately did this to their own eyes, dying to become beautiful. So they took the deadly nightshade, it's the same thing, contains atropine, and instilled them to the eyes to dilate as big as they can, because men back then thought that women with dilated pupils were sexually attractive. So yeah, beauty is really in the eye of its beholder. So having seen the deadly effects of atropine, it is one of the most effective and potent medicine that we have today. Okay, it's a valid drug. Okay, atropine itself is used in anesthesia and in emergency medicine to help you to increase your heart rate. Okay, it's one of the life-saving drugs. And again, the drops can be used in children in regulated dose, of course, to delay or even stop the progression of farsightedness. And remember, I said that atropine can dilate, right? So a safer version of atropine, which does not cross into your brain, is used to dilate your airways for asthma patients. Okay, it's life-saving drug. And an even more toxic variant is called scopolamine. It's just a fraction of a gram. You put it behind your ear, and it can stop motion sickness for 3 days. So all these goes to show again and again in my lecture that in every poison there is medicine. Poison and medicines are two sides of the same coin. So having said that, let us look at the first demo. We'll meet the trumpet, look at the tropane alkaloids. I'm going to show you real atropine. So I don't think this has been shown before. So this is probably the first here in Malaysia. So let's go. So while I'm preparing for the camera, I think Rina is going to help us out with this important disclaimer that we are going to extract and experiment with a poisonous plant.
All right. So, as usual, when we have talks by Dr. Chan, there will be some demonstrations that you should not replicate at home. I cannot stress this enough, especially with today's plants. Okay. Now, we talked earlier about how it's also used as a medicine. In the event that you feel you have motion sickness or you might have farsightedness, do
Always
not
talk to your doctor
yeah,
first.
do not try to medicate yourself and go find an angel's trumpet flower and rub some of it near your eye or behind your ear or whatever. Please go to an actual doctor and get an actual prescription, okay? We are showing
All
you this
right,
for
Rina, can you
knowledge,
see
okay?
our
Oh,
angel
okay.
trumpet
So now we
here?
have the plant. Yes, okay. Let's
Yeah,
continue.
all right. So this is the Bergsmansia or the angel's trumpet plant. Remember, just now I told you how to distinguish between the species. This is the cultivar candida. Can you see the very long recurved petal tips here? Right? Very beautiful. Now I can touch this, but you must remind me don't touch my eyes later. And then, and then we have this long flower tube that is covered by these calyx. So this is the aurea complex, and this one is a natural hybrid called Bergsmansia candida. And this one is interesting and special because it's quite adaptable. So the angel's trumpet, they don't usually grow well in lowland, except for this one. I've tried many of them. So this is one that you can really adapt in lowland and it will flower like this. Here I'm in Penang, it's very hot now, but it still flowers. Again, this is a hardwood shrub. Can you see that? Okay. So it's hardwood shrub. And then the leaves are kind of large, furry. So this is the angel's trumpet. Now, if you have any question regarding this, you can just put it down in the comments. I will address them later. Now, let's look at atropine. So here I have atropine. Can you see that?
Yes.
So this is a valid, pharmacopoeia. This is one that doctors can give you if you have certain conditions like low heart rate or pesticide poisoning. So we just break this ampule and we can give it to you. It's also used to negate some of the effects of the paralytic drugs used in general anesthesia. So very important, very potent drug. You see, so here we have a 1 ml ampule. It contains just 1 milligram. Can you see 1 mg, 1 milligram of atropine. And that's it. That's enough to elicit all the effects that are desirable. So if you take a lot of this, then it's really very bad. Now, I'm going to show you the pure atropine sulfate crystals. Ooh, heck. Okay. Just something wrong. Right. Let me just do it again. This is what happens when. All right.
Okay.
Apologies for the glitch. It happens all the time. That's okay. Now, can you see here? I have a vial containing this white powder. Can you see that inside? I'm not going to open it because this is pure atropine. Can you see that? This white powder here. Can you see that?
Yep.
Rina?
Yep.
Oh,
And
yeah,
this
you can see
actually
that,
is
right? Okay.
extracted from
So,
nightshade, right?
yeah, this is extracted from nightshade and this is pure atropine sulfate. And here we have about half a gram. So there is enough here if given individually to incapacitate, I think, about 100 people. Yeah. So this is very poisonous. I'm not going to open it, but I'm going to do a demonstration to show you atropine in its pure form. Now, okay, let me just put this aside. So remember our good friend chromatography. We're going to do an experiment with chromatography now. Okay. I knew what happened just now because of the internet. All right. Okay. Right. Here you see the atropine molecule. Okay. This is what I meant by wishy-washy. You can twist and turn around. So this is atropine. You can see it looks like a chair, right? So that's the characteristic ring that makes the tropane alkaloid. And this here is the natural one, acetylcholine, your body makes. So this one and this one looks a lot alike, and I can overlap them. You see that? Two red and a blue, almost the same. This is how atropine works. So here, let's open our good old box. Here it is. All right. So here, I have done this thin layer chromatography with this one here on the left lane, we have the natural extract. So this is a natural extract. And here I really have just atropine from, Pramaniaga, okay? So we'll see if this atropine, where doctors give you, is the same as the one I've extracted from the plant. And we can do so by our good old reagent here, this one, if you remember, that turns red in the presence of alkaloids. So let's do it. Let's stain our chromatogram and see if the atropine from the plant is the same as the atropine that doctors give you in the clinical setting. Right. No. This is fun and dangerous. I should be wearing gloves. It's all right. Okay, 3, 2, 1. There we go. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So this
like
is the atropine. It's one spot, means it's very pure. Okay, so this red spot on the right lane is the atropine that doctors give you. Okay, and on the right you can also see this is less clean. It has 2 spots. Okay, and this, because the distance traveled by the spots are the same, so your angel's trumpet plant, Brexmansia, does contain atropine. But it also contains something else, right? There's an additional spot up there. That one is scopolamine, okay? So this is very, very dangerous if you like, okay? This is even more dangerous than atropine itself. So the plant contains many, many different alkaloids. And in fact, in pharmaceutical industry, we take plants and then we purify them to give you to give doctors the medicines they prescribe. All right. So there goes the atropine. Now this one is the seed extract, and now I have the flowers extract. So let's see if the profile of the flower is any different or similar. Okay, so this is the flower. There we go. More or less the same, isn't it? So we do have atropine, but we also have an even more potent alkaloid called scopolamine. So this is what we have from the angel's trumpets. Okay, very poisonous, but there we go. So in every poison, there is medicine, and a lot of times drugs really just come from nature. All right. That's it for our demo. I'm back to the slides, right?
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay. So let me just remove the reagent for a while, because they do smell. All right. Now, moving on, we have talked a lot about poison, right? So now is one that is strongly medicinal, far less toxic, and this is a native plant, and it's called the southern ginseng. Have you ever heard of this one? No? Yes?
I've
So this
heard
one
of
is
it, but I've never
predominantly
seen
found.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, this one can be found growing wild in Cameron Highlands, actually. And it's called, it really has a Chinese name because it's predominantly exploited by the South Chinese and Taiwanese and Japanese, and it's called Jiaogulan, and in Latin name, it's called Gynostemma pentaphyllum. Why penta? Can you see 5 leaflets in one leaf? Yeah. So guess what family it belongs to?
Gynostemma.
It's called the southern ginseng is because it contains the same phytochemicals as ginseng. So medicinally, you can consider this as equivalent to ginseng. Yeah. So if you cannot afford ginseng, this is it. So what kind of family do you think it belongs to? Cucurbitaceae. It's a god. It's a kind of a god family. So it's distantly related to cucumbers, watermelons, and pumpkin. Yeah. So this is a god. And the primary active ingredient, or you can think of it as a poison, I'll show you why, of this ginseng and also the southern ginseng plant, gynostemma is called gypanosite. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the phytochemistry of ginseng, if you like. And unlike atropine, which is an alkaloid, this is called a terpene. Okay, terpene. And terpenes do not contain nitrogen. It's neutral, and it's really just hydrogen and carbon in its backbone. And they almost always come in a set of 10. So we have 10, 20, and 30. And for ginseng and also gynostemma, it's a triterpene called dammarene. Okay, don't worry. Now you see, plants photosynthesize, right? Take in sunlight, carbon dioxide to make sugar. And from the sugar, plants can make or oxidize the sugar into a precursor called mevalonic acid that contains 5 carbons. Don't worry about the chemical structure, just remember it comes with 5. And if you multiply 5 by 6, what do you get? 30. So this is how the 30 carbons come from. Again, don't worry about all this. All I need you to remember is that this dammarene triterpene, this ginseng chemical, contains 4 rings. Okay, this is what I mean. Okay, let me just show you a quick one here. Can you see me? All right. So this is the simplified structure of the ginseng phytochemical, right? Can you see that? This is what I mean by ring. I can put my finger through it, right? So there's 4 rings. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just remember, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 rings in ginseng and gynostemma. That's it. It will make sense soon enough. All right. Let's go back to our slide. You can see my slides, right? Okay, so here it is. Okay, so this 5 rings, these 4 rings and this 30 carbons again gets incorporated with additional sugar. You know, plants likes to sugar coat things, if you remember my previous talk. So it sugar coats this triterpene to make the active compound found in ginseng and gynostemma. This one is called ginsenoside. Okay, don't worry about it. It will make sense. So this is how it looks like. I've just shown you, right? So remember the 4 rings, A, B, C, and D. The reason why these 4 rings are important is because, again, remember, it is a toxin. It mimics a natural compound, or rather steroids, insects need to survive. Okay, so you know, insects, they go through different life cycles. They have to shed their skins, right? So whenever they do so, they rely on a growth hormone, a type of steroids called ecdysone. Can you see the similarities between these two? The 4 rings, A, B, C, D, yeah? So if this triterpene, this ginseng chemical, messes up the hormone of the insects, that's very bad, right? So it's a way the plants use to protect itself. And to make it even more effective, okay, here's why it incorporates sugar into this molecule. You know, whenever you want to kill insects, you can use soap, right? So this is also a plant-based soap because the sugar fragment of this molecule enables water solubility. Sugar is soluble in water, but then this steroid component is fat soluble. It's like cholesterol. So it has the best of both worlds, really. It's like a soap, and it helps, you know, to fight insects. All right. So if it can mess up the steroids of insects, can it also affect human steroids? Absolutely. So this ginseng chemical or gypanoside, you remember the 4 rings A, B, C, D, okay? It looks a lot like our human stress hormone, cortisol, and also the female sex hormone, estrogen. Okay, you see that 4 rings? Okay, so because of that, it does have many different effects on the human body, including anti-inflammation, antioxidant, anti-anxiety, because it regulates. Okay, so this is not a competition. It's more like a slow toning or regulation of the hormone. Little bit of hormone can do a lot of work. So it can have this anti-anxiety, antioxidant, and anti-inflammation effects. And culminating in, at least based on preclinical trials, it does have some anti-cancer effects as well. But the most human trials has been centered on cholesterol lowering and anti-obesity effects. So there are indeed many human trials and RCT randomized controlled trials on this plant to show that it is indeed medicinal. It's just like ginseng, right? So there is even this recent article, I think, that reports that this plant, if you take it for long, it enhances your ability to exercise. Okay, so it's more like a performance enhancing drug. ginseng, people. So yeah, you see, this study is interesting. So they make young participants consume about 3 grams of dried leaves for 4 weeks, and then they, literally put them on treadmills and measure their body's ability to use oxygen and to exercise, and it really does wonders. Okay, so plants don't grow as food or medicine, but if we are smart enough to use it, it certainly has medicinal effects. So now here is the multi-billion-dollar question. Is it safe to consume? Okay, what's my take as a phytochemist on this? Now, I am going to show you the plant right now, but unfortunately, I don't think I will answer that question to everyone because everyone's body is different. So myself and the Fisher Society, we will not be making any health claims for any plants. So if you really want to consume this one, talk to your doctors or your GP or your pharmacist, and maybe you can work together, to find out what is suitable for you. So I think Rina is going to help me to emphasize this one while I move forward with the exhibition.
Okay,
Right.
so as before, this one may not be a poison. However, as Dr. Chan has mentioned, and also we take this stand at Free Tree very seriously as well. While a lot of plants have medicinal properties, we will not tell you to take them for your own health. You will need to consult with a professional healthcare, like a healthcare professional. Sorry, to find out if you can take it, because everybody's built differently and everybody's body reacts differently to different chemicals. So please don't go around Cameron Highlands plucking this leaf and eating them for fun. Talk to your doctor first, okay? All right, let's get on with the demo.
So this is the southern ginseng plant, very interesting, very dainty, small and nice. So this one is predominantly montane, so it does like the cold, but it can also adapt and grow well in lowland. It's just that it doesn't like full sun and you have to grow it in the shed. So this is the southern ginseng plant, Gymnosperma. Can you see the 5 leaflets? And in fact, sometimes it has 7 as well. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a climber, it's a herbaceous plant, right? You see the tendrils. Now, there are many plants that look like this, right? And some of which can be poisonous. So again, I must emphasize that you please don't go and, pluck any plants with 5 leaves thinking it is a southern ginseng, okay? So make sure you know what you are taking. But this plant really has well-established medicinal effects and also safety based on human trials, okay? So it is indeed something worth researching for future. And here is a product that, in fact, you can buy these over Shopee and Lazada or not, and like this. So this one is grown in Thailand. Can you see that? This is a product that's been cultivated and steamed and processed into tea. So you don't just take this right away raw and be very harsh on your tummy. Remember, it's like soap. You don't want to eat a soap bar, right? So it needs to be processed in a certain way, and it's usually processed into a tea like this. So there's an instruction on how to take it, although I didn't understand it either. You see that? Gymnosperma, right? And yeah, so this is the southern ginseng plant. So if you have any questions, I can address them. If you want to know where to collect or get this plant, I can answer you as well. But because of this nature of the talk, I do not want to give a very sweeping claim about health benefits. All right.
Yep. Appreciate that,
Moving
doctor.
on. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so moving on. Now, I've stated many times, and this is weird, right? Nature's coincidence. Why do you think a plant totally unrelated to ginseng would produce chemicals found in ginseng? We've seen this many times. Convergent evolution, nature's coincidence. Okay, now look at this molecule here. What do you think it is in yellow? This is caffeine, the world's most abused psychoactive drug. You know how many plants actually produce caffeine apart from coffee? Many. Tea and coffee both contains caffeine, but then they are totally unrelated, right? And so as this guarana and kola nut and coca, they are all different plants in different families. They all converge on the same molecule. Because what? Because caffeine is a poison to insects, okay? So these plants, they all produce caffeine to poison insects, to prevent themselves from being eaten. So that's really wonderful. Now, we're done with medicine and poison and chemistry. Let's look at some weird plants of the highlands. Now, in the Cameron Highlands, there are many pitcher plants, and these two are remarkable in their own ways. We have the blood red pitcher plant, Nepenthes sanguinea. You can see that, very vibrant. And also this species, which is recently erected, the silky pitcher plant. Can you see the peristome here? It's very silky, the lid of the plant. Okay, so this one has been recently erected as a new species from a species complex by my friend. So yeah, very interesting. But what's even weirder is that, especially in human disturbed habitats, these two tend to form natural hybrids. You see this tree in the middle?
Yeah.
It's a natural hybrid between Sanguinea and Sericea. Why? Because valid species are not supposed to interbreed. But here we have more and more and more hybrids that's really going to make plant taxonomies go crazy. Why? It might have to do with our human interference. Because you see, in the wild, remember the Bergsmansia, different species, they have this reproductive barrier, okay? They don't interbreed. And that in plants means different flowering season, okay? So Nepenthes sanguinea and Sericea, they usually flower in different periods in a year. But as we human encroach the natural habitat, raise the temperature, do all this construction and stresses out the plants, they flower at the same time, and then they interbreed, and then they form all these hybrids, which are actually very successful. They can grow very large, almost the size of my wrist. And then they outcompete with the parent species and are driving the parent species to local extinction. Is that a good thing? Okay, I don't have answers for that. So maybe we humans, we have to think about our own actions. Sometimes we can cause, unforeseen effects like these that's happening right now in the Cameron Highlands. I'll show you the hybrid and the sanguinea later. And for the Sericea, for the silky pitcher one, here's something even more mysterious, and nobody in this world, I can tell you, knows why. So at the base of the plant, the bottom, what we call the bottom pitchers, the monkey cups, right? They look very mottled and beautiful like this with red specks. But as the plants grow taller and taller, reaching sunlight, the cup, if you like, becomes white, totally white like this. Why? Like this one I've observed in Gudong Jasa. Why? We have no idea. Is it because it helps the plant to capture different prey? Or is it because of photo bleaching effects or the plant's protective mechanism against more sunlight? We don't know. No one knows. So for future botanists, now here's a PhD for you. I have no answers for you. Wonderful. Yeah, the mystery. Okay. So if you see this white pitcher plant and you see the bottom pitchers, they are the same species, the same individual even. But then you see how this is, I think this is my hypothesis, is this is called phenotypic plasticity, okay? It can change its form one way or another. For what reason? I don't know. Yeah. Okay, so moving on. Yeah, let me show you a quick one. The highland pitcher plants, and tell you a little bit of story that what I'm doing with it, because up there in Cameron Highlands, it's really a very sad place. So let me know if you can see, because I'm moving away from the from my laptop. Rina, can you see this?
Yeah, but you just got to speak a little louder.
Okay, so can you all see this? Okay, this is the blood red pitcher plant, the Nepenthes sanguinea. Okay, so these specimens, I actually rescued them from roadside really, which is now turned into concrete and construction. So up there in the Cameron Highlands, all these plants, the seedlings, the seeds, they disperse and then they grow in more or less disturbed habitats. And it's a very volatile place and everything can go up extinct any time. So it's very sad. And these two are specimens which I have collected and grown for quite some time for this talk. So this is the valid species Nepenthes sanguinea. You can see it's fully red. Right? This is the new picture. In the wild and in the highlands, they grow very large and impressive. It can be as long as my wrist. But here in the lowlands, it's less impressive. In fact, I'm going to pass this to some of my friends who are doing conservatory work. They actually have aircon rooms to sustain them. Okay? So this is the hybrid. Can you see the mortal form? It's a bit like the Serifia, but then it doesn't have the silky peristome here. So these are young plants. They do survive in the lowland, but then not as well. It's not because they cannot stand the heat, but rather they need cool nights. Okay, a very big difference between day and night temperature to grow well. So these are just some plants I use for demonstration. So these are the Highland feature plants. All right. You can hear, right? You can.
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, all right. Now, moving on, we have a lot of iconic wildflowers from the Cameron Highlands, and these are montane endemics. So they're only found in the high mountains. You won't be able to see them in lowland. So we have Agostema, this is the snow flower. We have Lobelia, and some of them I talked before, right? We have this wintergreen, we have this buttercup. We also have great deal of Jasneriads and also melastomes here. Okay, so if you, like me, if you like to go hiking around Cameron Highlands, these are all the regulars. You can see them. Very, very nice wild flowers. And the most iconic of which has to be the rhododendrons, the tree roses. Okay, so here are the Cameron endemics. We have the Robinson's rhododendron, Malayanum, Javanicum, and Jasminiflorum. All these, you see, they represent our countries in stems. Okay, very beautiful wildflowers. If you know where to look, very nice. But also extremely, extremely threatened by habitat loss. You see these two photos I took. Behind there was just development. Sooner or later, the development will encroach and all this will be gone. Okay, habitat loss and also threatened by invasive species. I will talk about this invasive species in the next lecture. It's very serious. But then these plants, they are quite hardy, the rhododendrons. They can also survive human destroyed habitats, like this one's here. So they are great subjects again for what I just explained, ex situ conservation. Perhaps we can work together, to incorporate these remarkable wild plants into the ornamental gardens in the highlands. Then we can learn how to propagate them and conserve these remarkable species. Yeah. All right, so tourists always win. So we have to think about our own actions and whether or not we can sustainably develop and enjoy this place in Cameron Highlands. All right, I've actually talked about rhododendrons in my 2024 lecture. So if you want, you can look back on that. Now, begonias. Okay, I know a lot of people love begonias these days, but we usually associate begonias with these tiny plants with fat leaves, asymmetrical leaves, right? And here is one that's really, it breaks all the stereotypes of being a begonia. And it's called begonia longifolia. So instead of the, round leaves, asymmetrical leaves, this one has a long leaf that is at least as long as it is wide. And what's remarkable is that it is 2 meters tall. Okay, it's an understory shrub you see here. It's almost as tall as the tree fern. And unlike most begonias, if you plant begonias, they grow seeds with wings. And this one, the seed is a fruit that entices animals to go and eat it. It's very beautiful. And look at the flower, and it is an evolutionary success. This species, Begonia longifolia, it doesn't really have a common name. I'm going to call it a longleaf begonia. Is the most wide-ranging begonia in the entire of Asia. You see, it's found in Cambodia, China, Taiwan, Laos, Myanmar, Malaysia, Sumatra, Taiwan, Thailand, and Vietnam. It's amazing, right? So most begonias here are specialists. They are found in, karst system or waterfalls in these micro habitats. That's why they're endangered. But here we have one, at least in Malaysia, it's a montane endemic. It's found in the high mountains. But this particular one is really amazing. Okay, it could spread far and wide. Why? That has to do with niche exploitation. I've said this one here. Remember our Daphnis neri, the oleander hawk moth. If you do what others can't do, you become what others can't be. So by becoming unbegonia, let's say, for example, by not having wing seeds, It doesn't need to rely on the wing to travel. If you're a small plant and you travel by wind, you're only going to spread a short distance. But if you're a large, tall begonia with fruits, like a mango, then you can spread, okay? Animals are going to eat it and spread far and wide. So that is what we call in ecology niche exploitation. So instead of being a specialist, now we have a begonia that is a generalist. Amazing. But as successful as it is, and ironic enough, the Begonia longiflora is locally threatened up there in Cameron Highlands. Because again, we are not, so aware of this species and how it and the kind of habitat it prefers. So there's a lot of development, and then there's this invasive species that comes in and takes over the entire habitat and causing this large population of this begonia to go locally extinct. This is true. In fact, all the photos you saw just now, it's all gone. All right, all gone because of development and because of invasive species. But I have indeed collected some of the seeds of the plant, and then I have grown just a few. The rest I actually passed to some of my friends who are growing it in the rewilding process. But then some of them I've grown here to show you. Can you see my camera?
Yes.
Yeah. So here it is. Can you see this one here?
Yes.
Very nice. Okay. So this one is grown from a seed, by the way. And this begonia is really different from others. If you're a begonia grower, many of them have these underground rhizomes and tubers. This one, it has no rhizomes and tubers. So it only grows from seeds. And this is the seedling. You can see it's really twice as long as it is wide. Okay. In fact, this one I'm gonna pass to a friend of mine who owns an aircon room to grow begonias. Okay, so we have a lot of begonia enthusiasts, and I'm happy about that. And they're helping me to, grow this species at situ. All right, so that's the story of our weird begonia that's found in the Cameron Highlands.
Yes.
Moving
I just
on.
need to add really quickly, because obviously we've seen this and you've talked about how wonderful this plant is and how widespread it is. However, again, don't simply go around Cameron Highlands, guys, and simply pick up begonias as you see them, okay? If you do see them, just leave it alone.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, we definitely condemn poaching, but then a sad fact is that you won't be able to find this begonia growing that commonly either because
Yeah.
of habitat destruction. Yeah, it's a very sad thing. So this plant is locally abundant, this particular begonia. So where you can find it, you usually will be able to find many. But in places where they do not, you don't find them, usually they aren't there. Okay, so that's the weird thing with this begonia. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to the wild orchids. Cameron Highlands is a heavens for wild orchids. Orchids are the most diverse plant family. There are more orchids than any other plants in this world, maybe except only for the composites. Okay, so here are the iconic ones. We have the Bulbophyllum, the Lobii, Angustifolium, and you see this one here, the orange one. It's as large as you are, the whole orchid. It's a very large ground orchid. We also have this golden ground orchid, the necklace orchid on the right. This one is as long as you are. And yeah, we have the big ones, and we have the very tiny cute ones like the Corybus, almost the size of your thumb. Okay, so very diverse. They exploit a lot of niche, and this is wild orchids. You can really write a book about this already. But here is the one that I wanted to show you. And this is the reason why I've arranged this talk to be earlier, because we have the sleeper orchid in bloom, Paphiopedilum. Paphio is actually, I think, the birthplace of the Greek goddess of love, Aphrodite. And then Pedilum is the sleeper. So this is the lady's sleeper orchid. I think you can see the flower, right? It has this sleeper that you can almost wear in it. Okay, this is one of the most iconic and unique and endangered orchids around the Cameron Highlands. We have two predominant species I'm going to show you. The first is the Lowe's sleeper orchid, Paphiopedilum lowii, named after Sir Hugh Lowe. Now, if you remember your history classes, I think many of us don't, so I'm going to remind you, Para, there was used to be unrest, there's this first resident who was assassinated, okay, J.W.W. Birch, and then he's replaced by Hugh Low, who is very well received by locals, and we even have roads in Ipoh named after him, and this very orchid that is named after him. Malaysians back then loved Hugh Low. And then what is lesser known is that he is also a horticulturist and botanist. So he has contributed a lot to the local plants and the study of local plants. So his name is commemorated in this orchid. All right. We have another one, the bearded sleeper orchid, Barbatum. And this one you can see is almost, looks like it has a beard, right? Okay, so this one is more common compared to the low sleeper orchid. And one sad fact with the low sleeper orchid is that it appears to have been locally extirpated entirely in Cameron Highlands, either due to habitat loss or poaching. So we have not observed the low sleeper orchid growing naturally in the wild, at least in Cameron Highlands, for quite some time. So this species really it survives because of cultivation by local orchid collectors, but not so much for this one. This one, you can still find it in the wild, but then also sometimes in roadsides, very threatened, but then it's a small plant. I'm going to show you, very, very fragile and very nice. Now, the reason why it is the star of my show, the finale, is because this sleeper, as weird as it seems, is an ingenious bug trap. Okay, it's evolved specifically to trap bugs, just like the pitcher plant. But it doesn't capture the bug to eat it. It tricks the bug and uses it as a pollinator. Now, I'm going to show you the parts of the plant here. So remind yourself basic anatomy of the plant in the far right, the top right. So here, the top and the bottom part of the flower here, it's not actually a petal. That is a sepal. So we have the dorsal sepal and the lateral or the bottom sepals, which are actually two sepals fused together called a syn sepal. The true petals, if you like, are these beards and the slipper. The slipper is a specifically evolved petal called labellum. Okay, that's the scientific name. And this is how it works. Now, above the labellum, we have the pollen, which is situated on the stamen, that's the male reproductive part, and just beneath it is the female reproductive part, stigma. So when the pollen comes into contact with the stigma, then we have fertilization. But then it also has a unique part which is special to sleeper orchid called the staminode, which is a degenerate stamen, which is a degenerate male reproductive part that looks like a cap. Its exact function remains a bit ambiguous, so it may be to do with to protect the pollen and the stigma, or it attracts insect. And here is how it works. How do you think the sleeper captures an insect? Now, this actually fascinated Charles Darwin even for many years, and he got it wrong. He got it totally wrong, okay? So how do you think this plant, this weird sleeper orchid, can trick an insect, as a pollinator, and also without self-pollinating, okay? So whatever the trap, however it works, the insect has to come into contact with the stigma before it comes into contact with the pollen. So if the insect touches the pollens, then it goes through the stigma. It's self-pollination. In nature, we try to prevent that. How? So perhaps attracted by the staminode, okay, the insects hit and falls directly inside the labellum. And inside the labellum, it's really like a pitcher plant. It has this downward facing hairs that's very slippery. So the only way the insect can escape this sleeper orchid is through the back side, where there's a tiny opening that forces the insect to go first through the stigma, then only it touches the pollens, which are sticky and stuck on the insect. That prevents self-pollination. So if the insect already has pollen, it would have fertilized the flower. If it does not, it's going to collect the pollen and then travel to another flower to fertilize it. Smart, right? Imagine how many years of evolution has gone to produce something like this. So that's the fun of the sleeper orchid. And that is the star of the show, which I'm going to show you in this first part. So now I'm going to prepare the preserved specimens. And while I'm doing that, Rina is going to help me out with this most important disclaimer. This is a very, very endangered group of plants. I certainly do not hope to see people poaching it, or we don't want to see any, actions that damages its native habitat.
Yeah. Okay, so on behalf of Free Tree Society again, we love our plants, and we know some of you out there, you really love your plants. Some of you out there in gardening groups especially, you love your flowers, you're really good growers, you're always on the lookout for something beautiful and rare. But in this case, and in any case, if you do hear of something rare and wonderful, something wild, weird, and wonderful, as we say here, please do not poach them from the wild. Especially in the case of these particular species of orchids, these are critically endangered. Please leave them where they are. Okay. I'm sure there are some people who are trying to breed them artificially on their own in their homes or their gardens or their nurseries, and maybe you can find these people, but do not take them from the wild. Okay. I have seen a lot of people take plants from the wild, and it's not cool, so please do not do that. If you really truly love nature, you do not hurt it. Okay. All right. On that note, we are now going to see this flower in real life, and this is exciting because I've never seen it in real life as well.
Okay,
So
so
yeah.
I'm going to show you the plants, and before I start, I must mention that these plants were donated to me specifically for this talk by my friend who's a local naturalist and who's cultivating them and propagating them in situ, and to revive these orchids. So to Mr. Tiba, if you're watching, thank you for sponsoring these orchids. So this is the low sleeper orchids. Unfortunately, the flowering period is over, but you can see that the sleeper orchid, it has this span, right? So each span will produce a spike, a flower spike, and for this particular type, the green leaves type, it will produce a flower stalk with multiple flowers. Okay, so after the flowering, this one is flowered. The span will gradually die out. It will transfer its nutrients to the new stalk, new span here. You can see a new growth there, right, Nina? Okay.
Yes.
This is the low sleeper orchid. And this one is really, really quite patterned. In fact, I'm very pleased to be able to still see this in Cameron Highlands. So here are the sleeper orchid, the low sleeper orchid that's been preserved in this FAA specifically for this talk. Can you see that?
Yes.
So this is the petal, and this one I have the labellum removed to show you the semilobe. So can you see that this is the semilobe, right? So behind the semilobe here, you can see that there is the pollen. That is the pollen, and then we have the stigma and the stamen. So this is the full size of the low sleeper orchid, which I have preserved. See how nice is the labellum. So the insect, it gets caught, it gets attracted by the semilobe, it falls inside the labellum, and then it goes from behind to exit the flower. Now, because it relies on this insect deceiving mechanism or combination, these flowers, they usually last very long. So if it flowers, then this one the flower itself can usually last for a month or even two. Now, here's the star of the show. Can you see it?
Yes.
This is the bearded sleeper orchid, Papilopedilum barbatum. And unlike the low sleeper orchid, this one belongs to a different group. Can you see the very nice mottled leaves here? Okay, so this orchid grows in the ground, because this is not an epiphyte. It's not dangling in the air. So this one, it really has roots, and it prefers, peat moss, or this one particular, it may prefer a little bit of lime and cast. Okay, so this is a ground-based orchid, terrestrial orchid, and this one it has mottled leaves. And here is the bearded sleeper orchid. You can see the hair, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it's nice to have your hand there for scale. Yeah.
Bearded sleeper orchid. Just appreciate it for a moment. And unfortunately, I waited a bit too long, so it has attacked by a snail actually, but it's okay. It's gonna grow. It's gonna Look at these, and what a beautiful flower. Can you see that the stamina looks weird? And then behind there we have the pollen. Can you see the pollen, the yellow one?
Yes.
Yeah. So you see the hair?
Yes.
And this one is actually quite endangered. I'm going to tell you the story about this particular specimen. These one, my friend and I, we actually rescued them from the roadside again. You know, Cameron Highlands has been developed so fast that people do not go and survey what these in and around a given microhabitat or habitat before it's destroyed by development. So there's this patch, you know, around Tanah Rata that they really developed very quickly for hotels and, you know, night markets and whatnot. So these orchids, these ones, they really are living alongside the roadside. It's very sad when I saw them, they were like very flimsy, like pretty something like this. And after some years of growing, they become nicer. And it's really sad because we don't know that great orchids and endangered species are like these are literally living along us on the roadside all the time, and they can go extinct and locally excavated even, you know, without project or even without us realizing it. So I guess the speaker orchid is a very iconic and symbolic one, at which we really ought to think about our actions and what we do and what we can do, you know, in this age of development and AI to further the conservation of such remarkable things. All right, so one last look at the sleeper orchid. It's very pretty. Any questions? I'm happy to answer them. And there we go. All right. And with that, I think the part on plants is completed. And tomorrow we will look at the animals, and one which is extremely symbolic, which I think really captures the spirit of Cameron Highlands, and which is one snake here. Can you guess which one? Okay, its very name has Cameron Highlands in it. Okay, so until then, I will see you. I hope you enjoyed this talk, and good night.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Chan. And thank you so much, those of you watching from wherever you are. I hope you learned a lot about the plants of Cameron Highlands. And maybe it also helps you understand why it's so important to protect what Cameron Highlands has left. Okay. Amidst all the development and Dr. Chan has
Oh, we will see that tomorrow. It's really a
yeah.
set of affairs.
You
Yeah.
know, to find a rare orchid on the, you know, on a development site is sad
Yeah,
for the
it's
plant
very
itself.
sad, very, very sad. And I actually wanted to show the photos, but then my friend told me not to because then the poachers will come in and it will be even sadder.
Yep.
So I'm not going to show you, but then it's really the case. If you trust me, then it's really the case. It's sad.
Yes.
But then I'm also very happy that I get to know these people who are just as enthusiastic as I am, and they live up there, usually retirees, you know, they really have a lot of this field experience, and they help us to grow, and then we depending on the site, and then we can rewild it. Or even if it's grown in ornamental gardens like the Brooks plants, like the angel trumpet, at least they are not going extinct faster than we can act. Yeah.
Correct.
So this is the case of Cameron Highlands. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much once again, and thank you so much for watching. And remember, if you had questions earlier, you want to ask Dr. Chan a burning
Yeah,
question
just
for
put it
any,
down in the comments and
yeah,
open. Yeah.
put it there in the comments. And you know, he likes to go in after the talk to just like, you know, answer your questions and all that. Tomorrow is part two, same time. And
Yeah,
this time
and you
with
will see
animals.
the angel's trumpet flowering already. It's gonna bloom.
Correct, correct. And of course, as he said, one of these snakes is the iconic one. And yes, there will be a live specimen available
Yeah,
during the
I'm
talk as
very
well.
pleased to show you. Okay.
I'm very happy to see it
I
as
hope
well.
it's not as crazy as the last one. The last one was scaring me out.
All
Yes.
right. Okay. Well, thank you so much again, and we will see you same time, same place tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed the talk today. All right. Bye then.
Right.